Okay, our next speaker is Gene Kim from USDA NIFA, and Gene's going to talk about aquaculture update, extramural research, extension opportunities, and interagency activities.
Good afternoon. I just want to quickly give you an update on those two items. Just give you an overview of our agency's programs related to aquaculture, in particular thinking from the extension perspective of you and your clients for programs that you might get questions for or you might consider applying to. And then just give a quick update on the activities of the interagency working group on aquaculture. Some of you may know this as the former name, the Joint Subcommittee on Aquaculture. It's a little catchier title back then. So I just want to introduce myself. I am the National Program Leader for Aquaculture for USDA NIFA. We're about a $1.5 billion agency. We're the home of cooperative extension. We're the home of the land grant system. About 1/3 supports extension activities. Obviously, that's very important to the folks in this room. And about 2/3 of our budget is for competitive research programs. So I just want to talk about our role in federal aquaculture. We complement our sister agency, the Ag Research Service, who supplies the intramural, the in-house expertise. We are the extramural funding arm, supporting universities, agencies, and other research groups. Our focus is not necessarily freshwater or marine. I would say our sweet spot is commercial or private sector aquaculture production, regardless of the salinity of the water. Of course, if you want to go with freshwater, we are probably one of the only funders for freshwater aquaculture, but obviously NOAA grant and NOAA fund both marine and Great Lakes aquaculture. So we are about a $20 million aquaculture investment. If you look at 2010, it was a little bit higher in the past due to some large earmarks, which are no more. So we're hovering just under $20 million. So if you add up 20 million here and about 28 million with ARS and about 10 million, if you add up the entire federal R&D investment in aquaculture, it's about $100 million per year. Sounds like a lot, but compared to the number of species, production systems, and regions, it doesn't go very far. A lot of our funding for aquaculture is in capacity funds. Hatch Act funds support aquaculture at ag research stations, Evans Allen's, also at the 1890s institutions, as well as animal health and disease. What I want to focus on for the first half of this is just go through a few of the programs that have significant interest for aquaculture applicants. We have tons of programs at NIFA. They each have their own funding authority. They each have their own eligibility. So I just want to go through these five: the Agriculture Food Research Initiative, the Regional Aquaculture Centers, our Aquaculture Research Line, and then a couple quite applied private industry or training programs, the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program, as well as our Small Business Innovation Research Program. First, the Agriculture and Food Research Initiative, AFRI for short. This is our flagship research, extension, and education program at NIFA. It's about a $350 million program. It's not just one program. It's a variety of subset of programs. There are alignment with the Farm Bill priorities. There's 7 different requests for applications. In the future, I think you'll see this collapsing into fewer. So you have environmental literacy. You have the foundational programs, which is actually both fundamental and applied research. And you see 5 challenge areas. So the challenge areas are roughly covering the entire breadth of agriculture as in the Farm Bill. These are large projects. Some of you may be called as extension agents to participate in these projects because these are integrated research and extension projects. They are over $1 million, so it's going to be multiple institutions, multiple states, multiple PIs. They run the gamut, but they're generally larger than the foundational programs. The foundational programs are a little bit more, I wouldn't say basic research, but they're more fundamental research issues. There are 6 topic areas. Probably the bulk of the aquaculture submissions will go to the animal portfolio or the food safety and nutrition portfolio within this. These are smaller than the challenge areas. They're typically research oriented, so you may get fewer requests to be extension co-PI on the foundational. These priorities don't change from year to year, and they're usually single institutions or just a couple investigators. There are a lot of different priorities within the AFRI Foundational Program. Here's just a few that aquaculture has had success in. The first 3, animal nutrition, growth, and lactation, animal health and disease, and the tools and resources for breeding, genetics, and genomics. Aquaculture has done very well in these first 3 areas. Now, keep in mind, you're competing with cows and pigs and chickens, but aquaculture has held their own, especially in these first 3 topic areas. There's a couple new AFRI initiatives that I want to point out that could be of interest to you and your stakeholders. One is the Critical Agriculture Research and Extension. This is meant to be stakeholder-driven, short-term, very applied science that integrates research and extension, and it's meant to be delivered quickly to producers. So this is up to 300,000. So examples are looking at virulent aeromonas approaches to deal with that in Alabama catfish farms. So something that is industry-driven would be good for that program. The Exploratory Research program is another one. It's a quick, you just send a letter of intent. A lot of this program is for this sort of high-risk, high-payoff, game-changing research, but some of it is for rapid responses to natural disasters. The regional aquaculture centers you all know very well. We have 5 centers across the country. These are meant to transfer technology to industry, and they're meant to be practical yet innovative. We have a special research grants program for aquaculture research. This is specific to aquaculture. It's up to 300,000 applied research in 4 very somewhat specific areas of genetics, disease, production systems, and economics. The Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program, the purpose is not for individual startup funds for farmers, but it's for organizations to provide services and training for potential farmers. And the ABC, the Aquaculture Boot Camp at OSU, is one example of a program that was funded by this Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program. So there's 2 types of projects. We're starting to see a lot of interest from aquaculture. The Small Business Innovation Research, a phased program similar to NOAA. Phase 1 is a short proof of concept. Phase 2 is a larger scale up to commercialization. There's one obvious topic area that is applicable to aquaculture, the Aquaculture 8.7 area. However, food science, rural development, biofuels, as well as small and mid-sized farms have had some success for aquaculturists. And the 2 in blue, rural development and small and mid-sized farms, they differ in that you don't need to produce new technology. It could be transfer of technology through training and networking for those 2. So USDA beyond NIFA, beyond ARS, has a wide variety of support programs for farmers as well as for fish farmers and shellfish farmers. I won't get into them all, but it sort of brings me to the second topic, just a quick overview of the federal coordination of aquaculture. If you go back to your civics lessons in high school or middle school, you see the legislative branch, executive branch, and the judicial. And within the executive, you see a lot of different agencies represented. Probably the agencies of interest for aquaculture are agriculture, commerce, where NOAA resides, defense, with Army Corps, energy, HHS with FDA, Interior with Fish and Wildlife Service, and Department of State, as well as CEQ and the Office of Science Technology Policy. That doesn't include also EPA and NSF. So there are a lot of agencies, there are a lot of departments interested in aquaculture, but there's no one department of aquaculture. So back in 1980, Congress had the wherewithal and the wisdom to stand up the coordination body, then called the Joint Subcommittee on Aquaculture. My predecessor, Gary Jensen, was instrumental in really bringing up that organization. And the purpose is, in some ways, very simple, to coordinate among the multiple agencies on all things related to aquaculture. It could be federal financial assistance, it could be research, regulations, management. But just to get us within, they call it the federal family, on the same page with respect to aquaculture. We're usually a very minor component of our agencies, but to you all, it's very important that we're on the same page. The leadership is with USDA NIFA, myself, as well as my co-chairs from NOAA, Michael Rubino and David Mico from Fish and Wildlife Service. Max Mayo is the executive secretary. Max is a regular at these meetings. He has some health and mobility issues. He can't make it, but he sends his best. So if you know him, drop him a note and see how he's doing. We have quarterly meetings. We have about a dozen agencies that I mentioned before. And through time to time, we stand up different task forces or working groups. The most recent were the Aquaculture Regulatory Task Force. That was put together to streamline permitting processes before the Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Plan came online. Before even we have the first permit, we wanted to identify areas that we could at least streamline the process to find redundancies and make it hopefully simpler for the applicant. And the Research and Development Task Force produced a blueprint for federal aquaculture research. We always have interest in what you all are doing. We're always looking for topics to handle at the federal level. One that's been mentioned before, just a little bit of an update. We understand the perception issues. We understand this need to address the demand side. We've had some discussions, and hopefully we'll be able to have an innovation prize or some way that we can start to address the perception issues related to aquaculture. This may be in the form of an innovation prize that the outside NGOs take on, but we gathered a workshop of experts from a very big tent, seafood processors, real estate developers, health practitioners, fishmongers, and the intent was, how do you get at this consumer side of the equation? We know how to have research programs to increase production through our typical physiology, reproduction, engineering, but we're not as good as the federal government at addressing the public image and perception issues. So hopefully you'll hear more from that, and we can tap in to sort of the innovators out there. So with that, thank you very much.